quickly to Steve's point, I'm actually someone outside of Christianity who would like to be or wish Christianity was true. So I think that he could find people out there who are in that situation.
Why would you wish Christianity was true?
And that actually gets, that's kind of jumping ahead of what I was going to talk about, but that kind of gets into what I was going to talk about, which is the Euthyphro dilemma. Specifically, the atheistic counter-argument to attempted Christian resolutions of it, and maybe I could move on from there to why I wish Christianity were true.
For the sake of our audience, why don't you recap very, very quickly what the Euthyphro dilemma is?
Right.
Or I
think the call screener. Okay, go ahead.
So in its original form, it relates to piety, and Euthyphro is essentially asking, is something pious because the gods say so, or do the gods say so because it's pious? The Euthyphro dilemma has been manipulated, moved out of the realm of mere piety to talk about things like morality. Is something moral because God says so, or does God say so because it's already moral independent? If the former is true, if something is moral because God says so, then morality is just divine command, and God can say that slaughtering children tomorrow is moral, and that makes it so, and that raises a problem. If God is simply saying that this is good because it's good independent of whether or not he says it, then God becomes irrelevant to morality, and morality is something that can be discovered through pure reason and investigation.
And it's a dilemma because you get to a uncomfortable conclusion either way. So help us out of here.
Right. Yeah, okay. So there's a Christian attempted resolution to this, and then there's a common atheistic counter-argument. The Christian resolution, which people like C.S. Lewis promote, is that God's nature, I should say, and goodness are actually one and the same.
It's completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant to the Euthyphro dilemma.
Because if they are one and the same, if God's nature and goodness are one and the same, then I don't see how there's still a dilemma there.
Well, that solution or proposed solution doesn't address the dilemma at all. Let's say for example, God is synonymous with good. That tells us nothing about whether or not does God tell us X is moral because it's already moral, which would be the case if God was good. He's telling us what good is, and it doesn't matter if it's part of his character or not. Or is something good merely because God says so, and it doesn't matter again whether it's part of his character or not?
The way I read it is that the capital G God, the thing that you're talking about, is no longer a little g God anymore. It's a mental state or something, right? It's goodness, right? We're not going to argue that goodness doesn't exist, but we're not talking about some sort of supernatural being that's going to answer prayers or anything like that. We've sort of removed ourselves from the whole religion topic altogether. So maybe it's a trilemma where you're getting rid of religion now as even a viable thing.
Well, what I'm referring to is God's nature specifically. So religion. Religion says that goodness is personified in God, or at least some religions would say.
It's still a bag on the side here.
No, so that's the thing. First of all, you can't put religion, you can't use that term that broadly. Religion doesn't say anything about God. Religions say many different things about many different gods.
Right, I misspoke.
So with the Euthyphro dilemma, it's essentially, the question is, do we need God as a spokesperson telling us what is moral? If in fact we do, that it is moral because God says so, then that undermines the principle of morality, that there is something moral. Because that's like saying the rules are whatever I say the rules are, and if I can change my mind. So what Christians have tried to do by saying that, oh, this is about God's nature, they're essentially saying God can't change his mind about what's moral because it's fundamental to his nature. And whether or not that's the case is completely independent from whether or not morality is independently discoverable through reason, which is the point of the dilemma.
Oh, okay. I see. In that case, whether or not reason is independently discoverable may not be exactly what I'm getting at here. What I'm getting at here is that it just so happens that the goodness that is, or that happens to be discoverable by reason, happens to be personified in God.
Prove it.
Right, and that's the issue. But I think that
the problem here is which God?
Right.
It can't be. I would think that I would hope that we could all agree that the God described in the Bible cannot be the personification of goodness, because that God advocates for slavery, that God advocates for rape, as I pointed out in a recent video, not to the extent that some people do, but he uses it as a threat.
He's really big into killing.
So there are, women aren't equal to men, all of these other things. The character of a God in the Bible cannot be the personification of goodness. Now, the best argument you could come up with, or that Christians could come up with, is to say, yes, we're aware that the God of the Bible appears to be a moral thug, but that's humans trying their best to interpret this good being. The problem is, why hasn't that good being corrected the misinformation about him? If he was truly good, he would have a responsibility to correct that misinformation. If God is opposed to slavery, and people are putting forth a book representing God as being okay with slavery, God has the responsibility to correct that mistake, right?
Yes. And
has there ever been any God who has publicly corrected any mistake about their character?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if
Me neither.
In any way that's widely known, certainly.
And so, doesn't that mean that either there is no good God or there is no God?
I would say that we're lumping kind of this typical Christian perspective into that.
No. I'm not talking about Christian perspective. Let's imagine that the universe is being run or is governed, exists, whatever, because of a truly good God. Doesn't that God have a responsibility to make his existence, ideas, values clearly known and to eliminate the confusion that his beings have created surrounding him?
There's a lot of possibilities there that aren't looked at. Like, for example, God might not even know the universe exists.
Okay, so you've got a good God, he's just stupid.
Yeah, kind of clueless.
He doesn't know anything.
I mean, that's one of the possibilities.
That explains why prayers aren't getting answered, right?
now we've moved beyond the standard theological ideas about God, where there's a God that is incredibly powerful, that is the creator, that it is good, etc. And so when you're trying to raise this issue about a good God, the only way you can get around it is to say, okay, well, maybe there's a good God, but he just doesn't know anything about what's going on, or he can't do anything, he's not powerful. Why call him God? That's just a good being that we have no evidence exists.
Right. Because I think that when some people refer to God, they're referring to some sort of center or moral center.
Well, do you think this good God is going to judge us?
Maybe not.
How can he judge us if he doesn't know what's going on?
I suppose he probably couldn't.
Yeah. So if he can't, let's say there's a wonderful good being out there who has no idea what I'm doing. He can't ever judge me, so he's irrelevant.
Well, it would be irrelevant, except for, and this gets into the reason why I wish at least a certain version of Christianity were true.
Okay.
Which is that
What
Christianity,
version?
The version I'm about to talk about, which is that some forms of theism and Christianity purport this sort of, they give us a basis. They solve the metaethical grounding problem. They give us something to say that morality is objective, whatever people say there is, whatever people say of it. There's something out there.
So morality is objective.
That really is.
There's no need for a God to get to objective morality. This is something that Sam Harris and I have both dealt with repeatedly. But the thing is, you're telling me what you wish to be true, and you wish that there was some version of Christianity that would serve as a metaethical foundation for morals. Not only is that unnecessary, but you might as well be telling me that you really wish time travel were possible because that would allow us to go back and fix things. I don't care what people wish. I care about what is.
Right.
Why would we care more about what we wish than what is?
And let's not get too caught up in wishful thinking, because there's a lot of real world problems to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I'd say that I think that I haven't heard a good, or I haven't personally heard a good atheistic answer to that grounding problem.
Oh, it's really easy. It's really easy, Zach. We are physical beings in a physical universe, correct?
At least, yes.
Okay. And the laws around the physical universe dictate the consequences of our actions, right? So if I chop off Don's head, that's physical, and the physical laws of the universe dictate what the consequences of those are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so either cutting off Don's head is either in his best interest, or it's in opposition to his best interest, or it's neutral with respect to his best interest, correct?
Yes, correct.
And all three of those results are the dictates of physical laws, correct?
The results are, yes.
Okay. Well, the results are what we're analyzing. We're figuring out whether or not this is in Don's best interest.
Okay.
And that is objective. It's not just up to opinion. It is a physical fact about the universe.
Right.
Okay. That is the foundation that you need. You can begin with completely arbitrary statements. Life is generally preferable to death. Health is generally preferable to sickness. Pleasure is generally preferable to pain. And from there, you build up upon those. And the benefit of a secular moral system is that if you find out that any of your foundational premises are wrong, that they are actually working in opposition to well-being, you get to change those too. We could start with the premise that death is generally preferable to life. And I don't think it'll take us too long to figure out why that's wrong, why that's a bad premise to start with.
But the short answer is the core of it is well-being, right? We all want to thrive and do well and feel well and live long and
that is the subjective aspect of it.
Be healthy.
The idea that we care about well-being is the subjective part. What is true about well-being is the objective part. Now, if you tell me that you subjectively don't care about well-being, first of all, I'm going to call you a liar, because as far as I can tell, everybody does. People who don't are dead.
Or if morality is not about well-being, let's
talk
care about that. Well, we can talk about it. Or
I mean, at the end of the day, if we agree about what well-being is, if you don't want to call that morality, that's your business. I don't care what you call it, but I think fundamentally that's what we're talking about.
I'd say that the morality, well-being. Let me give you an example here. Let's suppose that there's some sort of psychopath or other. Maybe not psychopath is the right word, but a person who doesn't have empathy for other people.
Okay.
Through that system, the system you just described, that person would not have reason. Or would not have a reason to care about well-being.
See, here's your mistake. Here's the mistake. This is an easy mistake, Zach. What that person has reason to believe is irrelevant, because that person has a subjective experience and subjective thoughts. We're talking about an objective morality. It doesn't matter if that person, without empathy, has good reason or not. We can still identify what they're doing as moral or not.
And we can still, we still live in a society that cares about well-being, and we're going to react to that well-being in such a way that we're going to sequester him or do whatever to stop that, right?
The fact that somebody doesn't care about money doesn't devalue the money that I have.
Right, because the society as a whole can judge individual actions. But what I'm saying is that the atheistic perspective on morality doesn't give that person a reason to do the right thing, whereas the theistic perspective, where morality is grounded in some sort of objective truth.
No. It gives plenty of motivations. We have to share space together. And so building a society that promotes our well-being is in our best interest. I mean, it's a tautology. And that is the motivation to do that.
Well, there's certainly certain circumstances where a person would not be motivated to.
Well, that doesn't matter. You can't point to exceptions or irrational. You can't point to like the irrational person to say that there's something wrong with rationality. Okay? You can't go to the person who doesn't care about well-being to say there's something wrong with well-being. That just doesn't work.
Let me follow a little tangent here real quick.
I'm not saying that there's a problem with well-being as a foundation or as to look to as far as the content of morality goes. What I'm saying is that that person would be motivated to do the right thing if there was some sort of morality that was grounded in something objective.
It is grounded in objective. I just went through the details of what it's grounded in that's objective, which is the physical facts about our well-being. And second of all, there is not a single objection to secular morality, as I'm describing it, that is solved by appealing to any religion, even if they were true. Let's say there's a God, and this God is dictating what is and isn't moral. Does that mean I have to agree with him?
Not necessarily.
Okay, then that's the exact same objection you're raising. The fact that there might be a God doesn't mean that I have to obey or be convinced that he's right. So having a God does not solve the problem that you're claiming it solves.
It does if that God happens to be goodness itself.
No, it doesn't.
It
doesn't. It doesn't happen to solve it if his God is good in itself, because I can still deny and reject that. Just like it can be an absolute undeniable fact that lopping off my head is bad for me and for everybody around me. And you can sit there and say, I don't care about you, I don't care about well-being, I'm not going to be concerned about that fact at all. You can't solve the problems by appealing to a God.
Okay. I'm going to think about what you've said, and I think I'm going to call back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I have. I guess I don't have anything else to say to that.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
All right. Yep.
Let me add something real quick.
Sure.
He mentioned atheistic morality, and I think what he really meant was secular morality. Atheism is about, whether or not a God exists. But secular morality is a real thing, and we can talk about that.
Well, in some circles, they'll say atheistic morality or atheistic naturalism or atheistic this or not that it's
blah blah blah.
Basically, it is a shorthand way in philosophical circles of saying, on the proposition that there is no God, does this work?
Yeah. Okay.
And
just wanted to clarify that.
I'm with you though, because that makes confusion about atheism, because atheism isn't
need to add more
on the proposition.
All right.